Well, I'm sitting right in the middle of the start-finish straight of a racetrack in Thailand, and it's Christmas Day, and I think that's the first time I've ever done that in my life. Although I've been in motorsport for a long time, I have never been at a racetrack on Christmas Day. So this is first of all a cool experience, and the reason for that is it's the final round of Toyota Motorsport 2020, and the final round is the final weekend of the year. So we're all going racing on the very last weekend of 2020, and that's basically because of COVID, the calendar has been pushed back. Normally this round concludes the season, but it's around November time, but because of COVID the season didn't start till August, and the season's got a bit chopped and trimmed. So the first round was in Phuket, a street race as well, a temporary street track. Then there were 2 rounds in Buriram, which kind of padded out the calendar, and then this final round in Chiang Mai this weekend, which brings the series back onto another temporary track, which is kind of really its core DNA. So Toyota Motorsport, this series has been going a long time. I can't exactly say how long, because it's been going longer than I've been in Thailand. So at least 10 years. There used to be 2 One Make series, Toyota and Honda, but Honda packed in their series about maybe 7 or 8 years ago, and they actually both used to come here. Toyota's been coming here for a long time. Honda also used to race here, and this racetrack is set up in the car park of the 700 years anniversary stadium at Chiang Mai, which you can see towering up behind me. And it's a temporary track in the car park. It's a little bit Mickey Mouse like all these kind of temporary tracks are, but and in fact it's very similar to the Phuket track. It's a lot of straights and 90-degree corners as they squeeze like around a 1.5 kilometer track out of the circuit. But it's also a track that is fairly demanding. You've got to get it right, and there's a bus stop which is quite tricky. All the corners are slow, but you've still got to get them right. There's a couple of sections that definitely they will teach you to be a driver. You learn from them, and of course, being a temporary track with a short program, not much running, just over 3 days, and quite a short program, it means the track is dirty. The track is always green. It never has time to rubber up, and this is not the cleanest track anywhere. There's a lot of dust and dirt and stuff on the track, so you've got to be pretty careful. The barriers are like any street circuit. They're really unforgiving. You make a mistake here, you're going to be in the barriers, and that happens a lot, and that's one of the reasons that makes this a pretty exciting race to watch. The other reason it's here is because Toyota combine their racing with a really big PR exercise. So this track is just about 7 or 8 kilometers at the most from the city centre in Chiang Mai, so it gets a big crowd. And Toyota have a race series, but they make sure it's really popular with the fans as well. So they have a load of activities. They have lots of car type meets and car events. They have all their range on display and their dealers so that they can sell cars and get a real return. And they also have concerts. This year, because of COVID, they've had to pack the concerts, but they're huge, and they put Toyota splash out. They have the top bands. Last year they had BNK48 attending all the rounds, and they really are the top band, and they come in in the evening in the activity area, and it's kind of funny because people come for the race, but so many more people come for the concert. And when you finish with the race people are kind of leaving about 5-6 o'clock, and actually all the fans are streaming in, so the crowd really boosts up. You get a decent amount come for the race, then they move to the activity zone to watch the activities and the concerts. But you also get an awful lot more coming in the evening, and they walk right through Toyota's area. They walk right through the sales area with all their new cars and the sales staff. So Toyota really getting a return on investment for all this by bringing racing, bringing the activities and a cool aspect of the brand right to the heart of Chiang Mai. Same in Phuket. It's on the edge of the old town. They get a lot of fans come in from that. So this has always been something Toyota have done. They used to race at Rajamangala Stadium in Bangkok, which was also very cool. That dropped off the calendar a few years ago. They normally have a race in Karat, which is also really popular, probably their most popular round, but that's disappeared this year. So basically you have these two temporary street circuits in Phuket and Chiang Mai, and 2 rounds of Buriram, which kind of give drivers the opportunity to race on a big proper circuit, but it also pads the calendar out a little bit as well. So Toyota cover all the bases as well. They also have a lot of celebrities, a lot of popular actresses and actors in the series, and Thais absolutely love this. Boy bands, girl bands, Korean style actors. This is what connects with Thai people. Toyota understand that. They put them in their cars. So they have actors and actresses and singers, etc., and when the fans come, they know the names. So that's a real marketing exercise for Toyota. Alongside that, this is the absolutely grassroots program in Thailand. If you want to go racing, all you need, and you've done maybe karting or something like that, if you want to get in a race car, this is where you start, and it's really cost effective. Toyota makes sure that you can go racing and it's affordable, and there is nothing cheaper to have a racing weekend than this series. You know, literally you have 3 free practices, qualifying in a race, and it's peanuts. Pretty much anyone can afford to race in Toyota, and that's the way Toyota want it. They want to get people in Toyotas, they want them racing Toyotas, they want to get people starting off on the racing ladder in Toyotas. So they've done a fantastic job at supporting motorsport. They have the biggest team in TSS. They've won so many championships. They have famous drivers racing for them. So they are absolutely there. They went to the Nürburgring 24 hours this year. They won their class. So Toyota Thailand, really, they know motorsport. They understand motorsport, and they're a huge benefactor. And this series really helps people to go racing. You can turn up here, you can race, and you can really see whether you can make it or not without spending an awful lot of money. And then Toyota give you a ladder in this series. So you start off in the Vios Cup, which is really basic, and they actually split it into 2 different series. They have the Vios Cup and the Vios Lady. So lady drivers can race together in their own cup, and gentlemen, young guys, they can race in the Vios Cup. Then you can step up to the Altis, which is like the next step up. And although these cars are absolutely basic and really standard, Toyota with this year, with the Altis, they've pushed the boat out. They've actually made the Altis much more of a pucker race car. So it's got a sequential box. The suspension has been done by MCS. There's a few other little bits and tricks on the car. So rather than their normal DNA of an absolutely standard car that you can still drive, that's still road legal, but it's basically just safety orientated with cages, kill switches, harnesses, they've actually taken the Altis up a level. So it becomes much more relevant for people who want to race. If you're going to step up and race, you need a sequential box. You're going to come across them. So this is a great cheap way to get into a car with racing features and start to learn. And the third category they've got is the trucks, and truck racing is obviously hugely popular here. It counts for pretty much half the car market, the new cars that are sold. Toyota is the biggest brand in the truck segment with the Hilux. It's the most popular truck in Thailand in terms of sales, in terms of volume shifted out to the dealers. So a lot of people, they want to go racing in trucks. So this is a great way to start to learn to race in trucks. And to be honest, trucks were not designed to race. These are like 30, 40-year-old chassis technology, ladder on frame, leaf springs, drums at the back. If you can race a truck, if you can manage to race a truck around a circuit like this with barriers everywhere, you can go on and race cars pretty well. And so truck racing is also a very good grounding, and a lot of truck drivers have gone on to be very successful. So you can look at it, either you want to go racing in trucks or you want to go move on racing in cars. So it's a great opportunity. So you've got those three categories. Then Toyota add in a lot of elements for the fans. The first thing is the drift show, and when the racing finishes they have drifting demonstrations, they have performance car demonstrations, and this is what the fans really love. So they absolutely connect into that, and so pretty much all the bases are covered. If you're in Chiang Mai, you want a cool day out, cool weekend out, you can just come here in 10 or 15 minutes and you've got racing. You've got, you know, all sorts of activities, all sorts of action, keep you amused all day. There's activities for children, so you bring in the families, and hopefully Toyota will connect people with the brand. Hopefully they'll directly sell cars. Their Chiang Mai dealers staff are here looking to sell cars. So hopefully it builds up the family thing, and it seems successful. Toyota have been doing this for donkey's years, and it's a big spend they're putting in, so clearly they feel they're getting a decent return on this. So we've got a weekend of racing coming up. Today we have free practice for all the categories. Tomorrow there's qualifying, a race for one category. Sunday there's all the races for the other ones, the prize giving, the ceremonies and all that. And that's really the last weekend of racing in 2020. Once we get to Sunday, we're going to have the end of the year, but certainly it's going to be quite cool. We're in the paddock, we've got race cars going, free practice on Christmas Day, we're going to have qualifying and at least one race on Boxing Day, and I've never done that before, so looking forward to that. I've been here a few times before for this event, well, quite a few times, but never on Christmas Day, so this is something different, something to look forward to. It's still fairly early in the morning and the track action doesn't start for a few hours, so I thought I'd come up into the stadium. The racetrack is actually built in the car park right next to this stadium, so it butts right onto it. So these top tiers, sometimes I come up here to take photos. It's great to shoot down on the track. You can get the cars as they turn right through turn one, so it's a nice shot. No one really comes up here apart from photographers because the track isn't very big. You're looking for every vantage point you can find over the sessions. It's easy enough to walk around the inside and the outside in one or two sessions, so it's good to come up here. But you can see behind me the stadium is pretty huge. There's just one or two student runners who are out here early on in the morning, that's it. But it's really cool because this 700 years anniversary stadium, it will be reverberating to race car engines in a couple of hours, and it's nice to come up here. It's a nice vantage point to look at. The other thing as well is it's cold. It was 12-13 degrees when I got up this morning. It's maybe warmed up into 17 or 18, but it's really cold. My feet on the hotel room floor, I could feel the cold coming up through them up my legs. This is really cold, and coming from Liverpool, I never thought I would say this, but to me under 20 degrees now feels chilly. And so this race, which is normally held at the latest in about November, because of COVID in the calendar being pushed back, it's right at the end of December, the last weekend. And so we've never had cold races, and in my time in Thailand I have never been to a racetrack where I have to wear a jacket to keep the cold out. Usually I'm wearing a jacket and sleeves to keep the sun from burning my skin, but this time I'm wearing a jacket to actually keep the cold out, and that is the first time ever for me in Thailand. the best view of the racetrack, which is just on my right, and to get a feel of the size and the scope and the scale of this stadium, is a climb up this little steel stairwell which takes you up to the big pot where the flame is held. It's the Chiang Mai Stadium's version of the Olympic flame, and in 1995, when the stadium opened, the athlete that kicked the games off would have climbed up here and lit the flame. Now it's all rusty and decaying and no one comes up here, but you get a fantastic view of turn 1 and turn 2 on my right here, and this has got a very wide open start finish straight, so the cars come blasting up here side by side. They've all got a funnel 90 right into turn 1, and don't forget, this is a real Grassroots championship, so you've got drivers who've just started racing quite early in their skill levels, and you've got a track surface that's always a bit green and always got a bit of dirt and dust on it, so you get a lot of incidents coming through turn 1, and you get a lot of bravery, a lot of drivers pushing through and pushing it to the edge. So it's a really cool place. I like to come up here for at least one session, shoot some photos of the cars coming around, and you get turn 2 as well, which is literally 100 meters further on, and that's another 90-degree turn. So it's nice to come up here one session, 2 sessions maybe, and you just get a beautiful vista of the stadium, of the racetrack, the mountains behind when the sun's coming up and down. So it's a really cool place, and it's very quiet as well, because apart from a few photographers, no one else comes up here. I thought I'd also mention the stadium because it has an unusual name, 700 Years Anniversary Stadium. So I've climbed right up onto a platform where the flame is when they had the Southeast Asian Games, the Asian Games. The athletes came up here to light the flames, so very similar to the Olympic flame. There's a big stainless steel holder right behind the camera there. And this stadium, the reason it got its name for 700 years was at the same time as the Asian Games, Southeast Asian Games were held, it was also the 700th anniversary of the founding of Chiang Mai. So this is a very old community, very old city that's grown and grown over the years. So it has a long history going back. So the Games came along, it timed with the anniversary, and they've called it the 700 Years Stadium, which is kind of a bit of an unusual name, but it really reminds you how old and historic Chiang Mai is. You certainly get a feel for that when you go around the town, but it really goes back a long way further than any of the structure that still remains. And it really is a fantastic place to visit. The temples are endless, and each temple is just awesome. You can see 10 temples here, you don't get bored. You see another 10, you want to see another 10 more. Each one is so different. Some are huge, some are old. One or two look like they're straight out of an Indiana Jones movie. Some of them are really old and decayed, and they've got plants growing in them, and they tumble down, and that gives a fantastic atmosphere. You go into the temples, you feel like you step back in time. So it's a really cool place to come to, not just for the race cars, but the whole of Chiang Mai is just a beautiful place.
ผู้ลิฟต์ขึ้นโพเดียมระดับที่1กับ2สนาม12และสนาม4
While I'm up here at where the flame is kept on this high platform, I also want to mention the other thing that's really nice about Chiang Mai and this race. You can see behind me the mountains, and it's really nice now as the sun comes up. It's really beautiful, and this makes it a really unique track. We don't have any other track in Thailand that's up in the mountains and bookended by them. In Buriram, it's absolutely flat as far as the eye can see. Pira circuit has a few hills rising, but they're only gentle hills coming up. The Phuket temporary track, it's all flat there, it's right by the sea. Bang Sen, again, it's right by the sea, it's all flat. So this is the only track in Thailand which has really got mountains surrounding it. So it makes it a nice different thing. It's got its own unique DNA to it, and it's really pretty to come here racing and see these jungle covered mountains rising up around the track. One of the key things about the activity area is Toyota bring all their race cars to show the fans close up, and people can go up, touch them, take selfies with them. This is the end of the year and Toyota's had a terrific year. If you look at the cars behind me, they've all been winners. This car on my right was raced to the Supercar GTM title in the hands of Natavud. In fact, it was a double title because he's in the AM class this year, so he won overall and he won the AM titles. So that's a double winning car, and in fact Natavud won the title last year, so he's actually defending his title, defending it successfully. This car is probably the most interesting car for the Thai fans, because Toyota rebodied their GTC car as a Supra A90, and this is a pocket Toyota because there's no BMW bits on it. This has got a Toyota engine under the bonnet, all the bits are Toyota. So any of the haters or the doubters about the BMW connection with the new Supra, they don't have to worry about this car. This is pure Toyota, and this won the Supercar GTC title first time out in the hands of Manat. He's a very experienced driver, and he won the title in GTC first time with the car, and it was a pretty comfortable title. So this new Supra A90, it's already off the mark in terms of winning titles. It's got one on the board. So in terms of Supercar Thailand, in terms of Thailand Super Series, the Toyota have got a real good 2020 to put in the history books. Title in GTM, title in GTC. That's 2 out of the 3 supercar classes. So really good result for Toyota there.